I'd like to call this Town Commission Workshop to order, October 12th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. Let's all please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Town Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Mayfield?
Here.
Vice Mayor Campo? Let the record reflect that Vice Mayor Campo is not present. Commissioner Fender?
Here.
Commissioner Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Tompak?
Here.
All right, thank you. Now we are moving on to public comment on non-agenda items. Public comment, when it is your turn, please come up to the lectern. State your name and address for the record. I'll call your name when it's your turn to speak. 3 minutes, and there's a clock over there to keep track of it. Comments are only to the mayor and commission as a whole. First, we have Bonnie Flint.
Yeah.
I guess there's a good thing about
Yeah.
small meetings.
And you have two, so this is the one that's not on the,
I know.
Okay.
I'm hogging time.
oh, no, you have
But
that opportunity.
just briefly, there are a lot of rumors floating around, a lot of tempers are going all over the place, and I don't know that it's necessary. I would like to know, I hear talk about some mandatory ruling statute mandate out of Tallahassee with a deadline of 2025. Do you have a copy of it that you can share so I can better understand what the impetus going on here is? I don't think anyone's seen it. And it seems like we're making all these plans based on something that is still conjectural. But prove me otherwise. I want to be educated and enlightened. Okay? So can someone get back to me, please, with that? Hello? I would
Yes.
appreciate it, and I think it's a very fair question.
Yes, and as I've said before, and there's no back and forth, but after the meeting, absolutely, talk to the town manager, talk to us.
Talk to each one of you.
Okay. Okay, all right, thank you.
I think you hear me.
All right, thank you. There's no more public comment that I see, none, Town Clerk, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Moving on to additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda. I don't see any lights, so, oops.
There was something we were going to add to the agenda, was there not?
I think I was going to do it Commissioner comments at the end, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
Works for me.
Okay. All right. I don't need to approve. We're not voting. So we will move on to discussion. Up first, we have Bonnie Landry and Associates Comprehensive Plan. Oh, and before we get to that, I do believe we have a public comment on that. So the same rules as before. I think we have Nikki Van Vano. If you'll please come up and say your name and address for the record. Sorry, Bonnie.
Good evening. I'm Nikki Van Vano, and I live on 15 South Ridgeview Road, and I'm here to congratulate you on updating your comprehensive plan so that it is consistent with state statute. I really, really appreciate that you're doing this, and I think it will help you in the long run to face the challenges that the town will be facing. And I'd also like to endorse the planner who you all will be considering a contract approval for her firm. Ms. Landry is excellent planner, excellent credentials, and she specializes in comprehensive plans. And so you have hired an excellent consultant to assist you with your efforts. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Bonnie, sorry about that. Now you are up. Item 5A.
Okay, as you can see in the packet, this workshop is the overview of the comprehensive plan process. We're going to review what the comprehensive plan is, and this part one of the project is going to be the data inventory and analysis, because the comp plan requires that it be based on actual data specific to your town, and that is what we have done. Next slide. So as I said, we're going to give you an overview. I'm going to give you a project timeline. I'm going to talk about the now 10 required elements. When we began the process, there were 9, but now there is an added 10th element. And the goals, the findings that we have with the data.
Just
Next
to
slide.
follow this isn't in there.
That's what I think.
So the elements that are required are by Florida Statute 163. As of July 1st, there is a, I'm sorry? Okay. As of July 1st, there is a new required element since we began the process called the property rights element. And every municipality in the state must add this before they can change their comprehensive plan. But as I had said before, a comprehensive plan provides meaningful and predictable standards for the use and development of land. Oh, we will see the, okay. Also required by Florida statute and a different statute, 163-3191, it requires that every local government review their plan. It's called the Evaluation and Appraisal Review. This review every 7 years ensures that your planning is continuous. You don't just write a plan and put it on a shelf. It's an ongoing process. It also allows the plans to respond to changes in the state, regional, and local policies and laws. It ensures good intergovernmental coordination and monitors your progress and goals that you've set all along. And again, it is done every 7 years. Except for in your case, your plan was done and unfortunately did not go through the EAR process, and it is the same as it was 32 years ago. Because of this, from 1989 to the current, thank you, there were 484 changes in state law that your plan needed to respond to. Because of that, I contacted DEO, which is the Department of Economic Opportunity, and they recommended a complete strike-through of the entire plan and a rewrite of the entire plan because so much had changed. The first phase of the process is your data inventory and analysis. That has been complete, and what I will be presenting tonight, a summary of that. Phase 2 is in progress, where we take goals, objectives, and policies based on the data and research that we found for your town. As you can see, we have done each of the inventory, data, and analysis for each of the 9 elements. The 10th element, property rights, does not require data and analysis. It's just a state mandated requirement. So currently we are in October, and this is your overview of the timeline and a summary of the data that we found. I am going to give you a summary of the data, but if any of the commissioners have a question about a specific statistic that we have, if you know the page number, it would be helpful because each element's about 30 pages long, so it is kind of a big report. So as I said, it's going to, we have an introduction, which is not a required element, but it just kind of gives you a timeline of your planning horizon, and it gives you an overview of the town's vision. But the first element is the future land use element. This is basically shows where your land uses are located, and it also gives you a percentage of each land use, whether, residential, commercial, etc. And at the next workshop, we will be talking about the future land use map, which we'll talk about at that next meeting, because your original plan really didn't have a land use map. It was kind of an average of your densities, but it didn't have a future land use map, which is now required. So as a summary, you probably know this, your town consists primarily of single-family residential homes. You have 2% commercial. Your population growth is about 2% a year. Your average household size is about 2.43. Your median household income is over $140,000, which is higher than the median household income in the state. And we did some public involvement in April. One of the questions was about extending your town's boundary, and it seemed that the majority of those polled did not want to increase your boundary, your town boundary. But most supported accessory dwelling units for the purpose of accommodating multi-generational families. Some people, as they age, they take care of their parents, or you may take care of an adult, a younger adult. Yes, ma'am.
Let me ask you a question. Would you like us to ask questions as they come up, or would you rather, and Commissioner Tompeck, how do you feel about that? Do you want to ask a question right now?
Hey, it's up to you. You're the mayor.
Well, either way, I mean, my question is kind of
We'll
a
do it now then, yes.
kind of a general question. It has to do with, you've got a lot of graphs in here with some rankings, and when I looked at the numbers of people associated with those numbers, they look very small, so I'm wondering if those are really statistically meaningful because there's so few answers.
Are you talking about in the polling?
Yeah, all the poll, it's not just one chart, they're all relatively small, it might be 15, 19, whatever.
That's a good point.
Is that statistically meaningful in a town the size of Sewell's Point?
We could do another polling. I mean, if that would make you more comfortable with how people felt, but we did have the live polling here. I provided the same questions to Michelle, who provided paper handouts for people who came into the town, and we also put it on the website. So yes, it is hard to say that that's statistically, that was what we
Meaningful,
had.
yeah.
We did the best we could, but if you were to direct me to do an additional polling opportunity, I'd be more than happy to do that
Thank you.
before the process is over. But you are correct, that is a small sampling size.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
So the other required element is transportation, and we're calling it transportation and mobility because we feel, if you look at the law, they really have gotten away with just saying that the roadways are for cars, therefore people walking, people biking, people taking buses. So we want it to be for all modes. So this particular element is to plan your transportation systems for all modes. It addresses your traffic circulation for all modes. And it actually does help secure grants and funding. If you have some projects that you plan, then you could potentially get a grant for that. But you need to actually have it in a plan somewhere. So basically, and this is very important, you coordinate your transportation efforts through the Martin MPO. You have a member on that body. And that member on the MPO, their job is to advocate for funding for the town to make sure when there is a funding cycle in place through the Department of Transportation, you're in line. They do roadway projects, they provide sidewalk projects, so you want to get those in your transportation improvement plan, but the way to do that is through your member on the MPO.
And if I may, Madam Mayor, just as a reminder, I sit as the vice chair for the MPO Tactical Advisory Committee, and Vice Mayor Campos sits as your alternate on the Martin MPO.
And that's a shared position, correct?
That is a shared position with the town of Jupiter Island.
Right, but it is important that you have a seat there because otherwise your projects would not have a voice, so.
Can I ask you a question? How does a shared position work? I don't actually know how that
I
works.
didn't realize they shared it, actually. That's news to me. I thought they had their own seat. I do know that it's based on population, who gets a seat on the MPO. But Beth Beltran is your contact there. She could answer how we get a shared seat versus a full seat.
Well, I guess I meant, like, is it a period of time, or do they alternate meetings, or?
Ideally, they alternate meetings,
Okay.
but if they're not, one isn't able to go, then the other fills in for them
okay.
as an alternate to the alternate. But the information that bubbles up to the electeds comes from the Tactical Advisory Committee and your Citizen Advisory Committee, which you have recently
Yes.
discussed appointing a person. And
Okay.
so, from my point of view, I'm heavily involved
Okay.
in making sure that things are guided and reminded that Sewell's Point is here in need.
Okay, excellent.
And another thing you could do, because I used to work for the MPO, is during the summer, that's when they start planning their sidewalk projects, et cetera. Michelle, you could meet with Beth during the summer before they make that list of priorities, and that puts us first in their minds. So, it is an important connection, because that's where the funding begins. So I did look through their transportation improvement plan and their transit development plan, which are required transportation plans that they prepare. Currently, you have no transit stops in Sewell's Point. But in their transit development plan, they do have a transit stop, East Ocean and Sewalls Point, which makes a Hutchinson Island loop, which could get people to nice locations on the beach. The other thing that we found, there was a waterways plan that was done, which was a regional waterways plan. And one of the things in there was water taxis, maybe as a pilot program, because you're surrounded by water. That could also be a project that you could get funded through the MPO. Another thing that's required in transportation is to look at your levels of service, and we looked at your roadways. They appear to be adequate. You don't have any failing roads. One thing that stood out when we reviewed the data is you do not have a connected sidewalk system. So the town should consider prioritizing funding for sidewalks because it provides a safe way for pedestrians to get around. You do have a lot of single occupancy vehicles, but I think that's a nationwide challenge because it puts more cars on the road, but 77% of you get to work in a single car. The intersection of Southeast Ocean Boulevard and Sewalls Point Road showed the most crashes, but not to be worried. It ranked pretty low as far as unsafety. You know, that's the most unsafe locally, but if you look at the county-wide, there's a lot more crashes other places in the county, but that's just the one that stood out here in Sewalls Point. Also required is an infrastructure and water resources element. This will describe how you get your drinking water, how you deal with your wastewater, how you deal with trash, drainage, and recharge of the aquifer. What we found in this, Martin County's utilities does provide enough water to its customer base, and it looks as though they have enough water through the year 2040, which is your planning period. One thing that significantly stood out is the number of homes that are utilizing septic tanks for their wastewater. 788 in all are still on a septic system, 640 in South Sewalls Point, 148 in North Sewalls Point. The town is currently working directly with the county to try to encourage connections to the county's sewer system. And that is the Connect to Protect program that I think you've probably heard Michelle talk about. And it's mainly a concern of the age of the septic systems and possibly, you know, not everybody maintains them. They don't really know that they failed until it's already happened. And that could be a water pollution issue. The town is preparing for the risk of flooding. They're developing a stormwater master plan with your town engineer. Also required is the conservation element. This is to protect your natural resources, which are abundant here. The conservation and appropriate use of these resources is important to maintain your high quality of life that people appreciate by living here. What we found is you have a lot of natural resources. You're a tree city. You're an Audubon certified bird sanctuary. You're 400 feet off the east coast of the town is Bird Island, which hosts a variety of bird species. We had heard in the workshops that you residents do value your tree canopies and would like to see those protected in the comp plan. You should protect your mangroves because they provide stabilization of your shoreline and improve water quality. Plus, there are state rules that you must enforce for this as well. You're also required to look at your air quality, and your air quality is considered good. And the town is a part of the BMAP boundary, which is basically a framework to water quality restoration, which you're part of. Recreation and open space is another required element. This is to ensure recreational opportunities for your citizens. These facilities could include, but not be limited to, natural reservations, parks, playgrounds, trails, public access to open spaces and waterways. There's one of your parks. What we found in the data, you do have an older comp plan, so if you were to look at this, your level of service for parks is significantly lower than the county and the neighboring jurisdictions. However, those polled that day felt comfortable with the recreation and open space that was provided within your town. It is important to note that you do have nearby facilities. They're provided by the county and by the city of Stewart, which could supplement what the town provides. You have about 600 acres within a 3-mile radius of the town that your citizens could access. However, the town may want to look into implementing a local impact fee, which could be used to develop and operate recreation and open space facilities, just an idea. You also are required to have a housing element. This provides for guidance of the development of safe, sanitary, and affordable housing for all residents. It addresses redevelopment of existing neighborhoods, removal of substandard housing, relocation assistance, and housing assistance programs. What we found is most of your housing was built in the 70s and 80s. It was the greatest time of growth for your town. 97% of your town's housing stock is one-unit detached housing. 94% is owner-occupied. You don't have a lot of rentals. However, the rentals are considered, according to HUD standards, 48.8% of the homeowners with mortgages pay more than HUD, but renters have an affordable rent here. There is no subsidized or affordable housing, as you probably know. We did see an uptick in home improvements for the existing housing between 2020 and 2021. And as I said before, accessory dwelling units, those detached or attached additions to the home, would provide an opportunity for multi-generational housing. And I can attest that there is a local tax incentive if you provide housing for someone over the age of 60. Whatever addition that you have is tax exempt as long as someone living in it is over the age of 65. And I think that's a nice incentive that our tax collector has provided in Martin County. I take advantage of it myself. You also have a coastal management element. This is to protect your property and infrastructure from erosion. We need to protect our coastal resources because it would protect human lives and property when you have a natural disaster. It's also intended to improve public access to beaches and shorelines. And it's very important that you plan to protect these coastal assets because they're very important to your town. What we found in this particular element is you are surrounded by water, which puts you at particular risk for sea level rise and flooding risk. You should develop policies to make the town more resilient against these threats. They're also required by state statute. And this is to protect from floods and sea level rise. Due to the established neighborhoods, we cannot use relocation as a viable option, so we need to fortify your community. But it is good to note that you have very strong building codes which protect these structures. When they're pulling a building permit, you have a very strong Florida building code which will protect you in some way. Water pollution is a threat, but state and local and federal initiatives are in place to improve this. But water pollution, like old releases and such, do affect your water quality. And I know that on a local effort, at least, we're trying to reduce those LACO releases, which make water pollution. We also need to encourage people to connect to the sewer, which reduces that risk of pollution. And Martin County provides the majority of your public access to the waterways. They have a lot. There's also an intergovernmental coordination element. The purpose of this is to make sure you have effective communication with your surrounding municipalities, other governments, also other agencies such as South Florida Water Management District. Through this, you can serve your residents better. And in this element, we identify which agencies that you coordinate with and how you would coordinate with them. So we have a chart in your report that shows how often you communicate. For example, there's a city and county and school board meeting that's done on a quarterly basis, and I believe that you attend that meeting. So it is important to note that you have a long-term relationship with your partners, and we think it's a positive relationship with your federal, state, and regional and local partners. We have programs and policies in place that facilitate this regular communication. And as I mentioned before, you are in collaboration with Martin County Utilities and your Connect to Protect to eliminate the use of septic tanks. Okay, you also have a capital improvements element. And I'm very pleased that you had a very successful workshop with Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, which put a very detailed capital improvements in place, which we were able to use as part of our data. This particular element, you look at levels of service to plan for the future, what you're going to need down the road. And it also puts financial policies in place to how you would prioritize funding, and that will happen in your goals, objectives, and policies. So what we found is we made you a list of funding sources and defined each of those. We recommended that you use certain spending categories in your CIPs. And your CIP, as I mentioned before, now has a very detailed list of major drainage and roadway projects that will help the town for sea level rise and the perils of flood. So we're real happy about that. Now, this is as of July 1st. You now have what's called a property rights element. Every municipality must have this according to this new law. If you don't do it, you can't make any comp plan changes at all. So it is, yours will be done as part of this process, but other municipalities are doing it separately. And it's basically prescribed language by the state. And I mentioned this to Michelle, you have to have this in there, which is what the law states. However, best practice would be to have some goals, objectives, and policies. So what we recommended is we'll just put in the information as required by statute, and maybe down the road do a comp plan amendment to actually do it best practice with goals, objectives, and policies so it's more meaningful. So here's another timeline for you. We will be doing let me go back to the slide really quick. Over the next few months, we will be having a series of workshops. Workshop 1 is what you're in now. Workshop 2 will be, go through the goals, objectives, and policies for future land use and transportation. Workshop 3 will be infrastructure, conservation, recreation, and open space. And then the 4th will be housing, coastal management, intergovernmental, capital improvements, and property rights. So that will take you to, I believe, December is a public workshop. And this is just to kind of talk about it as a whole and see if there's any last minute changes that are requested by the public or the commission. And then you'll actually have a hearing January 25th, and that is a public hearing, have to be noticed and advertised, etc. And it will be the same day. You'll have the LPA first, and then immediately following, you'll have your commission hearing. After that hearing, that document will be transmitted to the state. It'll be all the goals, objectives, and policies, and all the data transmitted to the state. They will have a review period, and they will provide you a letter, which is any objections, recommendations, or comments. And then you'll respond to those, revised as needed, and then you will have your final adoption hearing probably in April. It really depends on how long it takes to address those comments. You do have 180 days. So that concludes my presentation. I apologize for the length. It was 30 slides. But it is an extensive requirement, so I wanted to make sure you've understood what it was. And I do apologize. I know it was a lot to read. So.
Thank you, Bonnie. I think it was very informative, and I really appreciated it. And we have questions. Commissioner Tompeck.
Oh, wait, before you do that,
Yes.
I have one request. Because it's so long, if you know the page number, it would be helpful.
Okay.
If you don't, that's okay, but
Okay,
help me go to that section.
that sounds fair. Commissioner Tompeck.
I'm looking on page 7 under housing analysis. It says 7.9% of all houses are eligible for inclusion in the Florida Master Site File.
It's page 7. Thank you for giving me the page number.
I have no idea what the Florida Master Site File is.
Okay, so what that is that the Florida Division of Historical Resources has a method of deciding what houses could be considered historic. The first rule of thumb is over 50 years of age. However, that doesn't mean it means you're eligible, but it doesn't mean that you will get through the process, because you'd have to have other standards in place, like a specific architecture, or a famous person lived there, etc. But that was just to give you an idea of what could be listed, but it would still have to go through the process to be an historic structure. Plus, that is an optional program, so the property owner would have to want to be on that list of historic homes. Does that
Here's my question. Am I allowed to ask more than one question?
Sure.
Or do you want me to come back?
No, go, have at it.
The property rights element on page 9, is there any potential impact in terms of, and maybe this is for the town manager as opposed to you, is there any potential impacts for short-term rentals based on this new section?
good question.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
First, let me,
Page up here, so we know what you're talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
It's on page 9, I'm sorry.
well, it's page 9 of our document.
They can't see it.
That's the requirement right there. You're welcome.
I'll preface what I'm about to say with, we should still check with your town attorney to
Okay.
make sure legally that is correct. But we have one of the longest-standing short-term rental ordinances within the state of Florida, and so we are one of the very few, I think there's 3 in the state of Florida that are grandfathered in with the current ordinance. Now, if we should open it for any purpose, then we would be at risk of having to change it and comply with everything that's new and current. But at this point in time, my understanding is that that ordinance is protected as long as it doesn't get opened for any changes. And we will still, as we go through the process, we'll be verifying for truth as we go through the process for inaccuracy.
Okay, thank you.
But I agree with Michelle. We have that extra level of protection that doesn't exist in other places.
Yes, I remember the town attorney talking about that previously. Any other questions, Commissioner Tombeck?
Go ahead.
Okay. Commissioner Fender?
Well, my question was actually about the property rights section, but you answered it, so I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Excuse me. I have a few questions, if that's all right, Bonnie. First of all, I want to say that I loved reading it. I think this first part, phase 1, is like a much-needed school textbook for the town of Sewell's Point. Like, I tried to read through all of it. It's very valuable. It like gives you all the information you need, and besides the fact that it's required by law, I think it's a great resource for any and all residents when you just want to learn more about Sewell's Point and kind of guide you as to why we do the things we do or why things have happened the way they have. Specifically, hold on, I gotta follow my little tabs. Could you you already talked about it on page 32, and it's on several pages, the accessory dwelling units. You talked about that. That is, an accessory dwelling unit is like above is it separate from the main residence all the time, or how do you, when you were talking about qualifying for that tax thing, how do you?
All of that. Okay, so that particular tax thing, it could be a separate guest house like what I have.
Okay.
It could be in addition to your home. It could be a garage apartment. It's just a space that you provide to take care of your elderly relative, someone over the age of 65.
Okay, so really even just an extra bedroom? That's if you added a bedroom, that's what you're saying, you
Right.
said addition,
So
okay.
the way it works is, typically when you do a renovation of a home, you're reassessed on that part. That addition is going to have an extra tax. When we built our guest house, that's tax exempt. So I pay the same in property tax, and they do that as an incentive to keep families together instead of, people, you have to do a nursing home or something like that. So you're not double, you have the expense of the addition, and then you got to pay tax on it. It's a double whammy, so it lightens the load a little bit, not knowing, not having to pay that extra tax.
Okay, all right, that is good to know. Page, okay, you had mentioned sidewalks too. Page 54. It's under the transportation element. Bike lanes on Sewell's Point Road from A1A to Palmer Street, that's North Sewell's Point, were identified as regional non-motorized need. I mean, I agree that it's needed, but I don't see how we would ever be able to fit a bike lane in there, so,
What page are you on?
54 is the one I'm looking
She's in the
Yes,
packet.
54.
You want me to pull the packet?
Yeah.
I'm in the packet. I think we're on a different page.
It's the 2040 Regional Long Range Transportation Plan under,
Under roadway level of service?
Transportation and Mobility Element.
54 in the packet is showing this map. Is that what you want?
50, okay.
Well, go
No,
ahead.
this is
I'm
right
trying
here.
to answer it still.
Hold on, I think I can,
Is it on the page that starts 2040 regional?
it's
goals?
page 15 under the transportation mobility element.
I'm on it. I
Okay.
got it.
Now, like I said, I see why it's needed, but, is that anything we would ever change in there? Because, I don't see how we would ever put a bike lane unless there's something, are you adding to that, Commissioner Fender? Yes.
That is in your long-range transportation plan, but if it's not feasible,
Maybe it is, and I'm missing something. Commissioner Fender?
So there's been a long historic discussion about
Traffic.
both bike lanes and pedestrian access. But I know, and maybe even town engineer can add color to it, the work we're doing on the multi-phase roadway is adding space along the
Right.
side to allow for pedestrian and bike traffic,
Right.
so.
sometimes
is
it can be a
Northville.
shoulder, it can be like a
Well,
paved.
Northville's Point already has a sidewalk, right?
Right, but this was the bike lane.
Oh.
I was just curious about the bike lane in North Sewell's Point. I know that's a county road, too, so, again, it's not really,
So that does lead to a question.
And sometimes it can be in the long-range plan as they get, if they could get like easements to put that in. But the struggle with bike lanes is that the state has widened it to be about 7. It needs to be 7 feet though to have enough room for safety purposes. But it is important that we think about other modes of travel other than cars. And in some places, what they've done is made the road lanes smaller to make room for the bike. And what happens there is twofold. It makes the cars drive slower because they have to be more careful. And when you're on a bike, you want the cars to be slower so that they see you. One method is just to make the roadway smaller for cars, to provide that for the bicyclists.
Right.
Because FDOT is serious about safety because in the state of Florida, they have the worst bicycle statistics for crashes with bicyclists and pedestrians than any other state. It's a struggle, and it's a sad struggle. We want to make it safe for everybody because not everybody wants to be in their car all the time.
Right.
So I think it's a good goal, but I understand your point. Is it feasible? It's in a long-range plan. Maybe they can look at making
Okay.
a whole street. They call it a complete street, something for everybody.
it just seems so tight there. Commissioner Fender?
So just so I understand the process, and I'm just curious, then you brought up the fact that this was in relation to North Sills Point
Yes.
Road, and it's really not our auspice.
Right.
What does that mean in relation to our comp plan for things that we don't necessarily have control over?
You want to try to collaborate, and that's why we looked at the long-range transportation plan and the transit development plan, because when you do a comprehensive plan, you have to look at your regional plans, not just your local plan, because you want to be in compliance with the state.
So would we use our comp plan as a means of communication to the municipalities that we partner with to say, hey, this is our vision for,
Yes, but you want to try to mesh those visions as best you can.
all right.
So this is from like the more regional plan or the MP, you said it was in the transportation plan, and that's,
It's in the regional
Okay.
multimodal transportation plan. There were, and Heather can attest, a lot of plans that had to be reviewed for this because you can't just do it in a vacuum. You have to look at what regional plans are in place. Like I mentioned, the regional waterways plan. So that you really have a good picture of what's going on around you.
okay. Thank you. TM18, maybe I'll do it like that, so. Again, this is kind of like the bottom two are not in Sewell's Point. Is that just for reference, or? It's the,
I found something that I did wrong. Are you talking about Ocean Boulevard?
yes, yes.
Okay, they need to be removed if they're not within the boundaries. Heather will make a note of that.
Right? Palm Beach Road is down by, in Stewart, right, in the Monterey?
It's Ocean Boulevard from Palm Beach Road to State Road 714. Indian River Drive from Palmer to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are not in Sewell's Point.
Okay, we will look at that when we get back and we
Okay.
will remove those.
Oh, this was an interesting thing. Tell me about owning water. You know, when I look at, this is CON3.
What page?
CON3.
CON3, which is conservation.
What page in
86?
CON3?
The map.
That is going to be revised, because I think that might be one of the ones. I failed to mention this. We are still revising the maps. I have a meeting with my mapper Wednesday.
Okay.
Because Michelle found some things that she wanted revised. But I know what your question is. Why is it in the water?
Yeah, like, I didn't think
That's true. So this is an interesting thing about Sewell's Point. Some of the properties go out and some people own submerged land, which is unusual, but it is the way the boundary was done. So if you were to need a dock or whatever, that's your property. You're not having to get a submerged land lease with the state because you own that land, even though it's submerged. However, that land would not count when you're doing your density because it's submerged, it's not buildable. But that boundary is correct according to my GIS specialist. But it does go into the water.
Excuse me. How, I mean, this, you don't have to get into detail, but how was that decided? Long ago? Someone was like the land under? Okay,
I don't know.
okay.
But that is, the source of that map layer is the Martin County Property Appraiser, so I feel it's accurate.
Okay. Let me see if I have any others. Anyone else can chime in as I go through my tabs here. Oh, okay, ROS, which is Recreation Open Space, ROS 3, page 108. I know it's recreation and open space, and maybe that answers the question, but the town-owned retention areas, you know, they're not in there. I realize they're not parks or designated for use, but they are town-owned spaces. Is that?
That's been designated as an issue we're fixing as well.
Okay.
So are you talking about stormwater treatment areas?
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't think about that. You're right, you could visit those spaces. And some are parks, like there is one up Palm City Road that I go to every day, and it is a park. Some of them are just stormwater treatment, some are parks, some have benches even. So we'll look at that and see if there's some, did you have a particular one in mind?
We don't have a combination.
We don't what? What'd you say?
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry. We do not have combination park and stormwater areas.
Okay.
They're designated stormwater areas. We happen to, on the boundary of, say, Lantana, be able to put the gazebo, but the rest of it is considered stormwater. And
That was my question. Stormwater is not
So it's not a park.
recreation or open space.
the fact that
Okay.
it's dry and the kids can play in
Right.
it is great.
Okay.
But we don't have it designated as a park.
That's fine. That's all I was curious about. All right, and since I'm on a roll, ROS 4, page 109.
Thank you, Michelle, for doing that along with me. The beach and water access?
I think we're a little, go to the page before that, because I'm 109, I think you and I, our pages might be one off, but it's on the Martin County Recreation and Open Space Facilities Table ROS 52.
Oh, I'm on 5-3.
Excuse me, an example of the private, outside of the town, open space, what is that? What would be a private open space available to people? I'm curious, it's out of the town, but,
I do not know the answer to that. That table we took from University of Florida GeoPlan. Can I get back with you on that?
sure.
I don't know which particular area they were referring to. So I'd have to go into University of Florida's GeoPlan to see what the exact site is.
Okay.
But it was considered in your acreage, so they must consider it as a facility that is considered open space. But I don't know which private facility that is.
Okay.
Could that be a golf course?
Either a golf course, I'm thinking, probably. But let me just verify that, and I'll have Heather write it down and get back with you.
Okay, page ROS 6, which is 111. recreation open space. At the beginning, it talks about parks with boat ramps, fishing piers. And it says the 2 boat ramps, Stewart Causeway Park and boat ramp operated by Martin County and Jensen Beach Boat Ramp Park are on the Stewart Causeway. There's a Jensen Beach boat ramp on the Stewart Causeway.
There is in Jensen Beach. I think I'm on a different page with you. Are you under ROS 55?
It's right. I have it up. It's right before ROS 54. So it's page ROS 6. It's the writing right
Stewart
before.
Causeway Park and boat ramp. I believe it's there. Are you-
Again, I'm,
Stewart Causeway, Jensen Causeway, these are all boat ramps, yes.
it just, I was curious that it says Jensen Beach Boat Ramp Park operated by the city of Stewart on the Stewart Causeway.
Oh,
Maybe
that's
I'm
a
just-
mistake. Definitely Jensen Beach boat ramp should be Martin County.
Okay.
I'll write that.
And maybe on the Jensen Causeway, unless I'm missing something, I would think Jensen would be on the Jensen Causeway.
Okay, there's your private, one of your privates, not Harbor Yacht Club,
Okay,
to answer the other question.
okay. I don't think this really matters, but Indian Riverside Park and the Martin County boat ramps and piers, right on that page we just were. It's under here for the pier, and it has that beautiful, large pier, but it's also got a lot of recreation. Are you able to put them in, can they be in both things? Again,
I
this
mean,
is,
because the fishing.
yeah, and the fountains, it's got a lot of space and fountains. It's not in the recreation facilities, the Martin County recreation facilities.
I agree.
Okay,
And you have that facility where you have events,
yes,
but you have the water feature, and you also have fishing pier.
Yes.
I agree that needs to be.
okay. That's a wonderful park. Oh, I'm sorry. No questions from the audience, please. And then HOU 6. I'm almost done, guys. Don't worry. This is gonna housing element HOU 6.
What page?
Page 122.
Is that housing?
Yep.
And what,
Housing.
I want to make sure our
Yeah, somehow we're slightly off. It is table HOU 64 housing units by type of structure. Yes, it's right down there if you scroll up. Yeah. It has. I see that you got this from the American Community Survey, but it shows boats, RV, van, etc. as structures. Is that like the things that store them, maybe, or something, or like the garage or something?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, Commissioner Fender, were you going to ask something?
No. Just gonna say, I didn't see a helicopter lift off there.
And I think there's a brief little typo above that, right above that, 1950 to 1950 in the table HOU 63, age of housing stock. It goes 1949, 1950 to 1950, should be 1959.
Okay. That's on 6-3.
Yeah. All right. I think that's about it.
It was a lengthy document, and thank you for going through it. I know it must have.
No, I'm telling you, it was like you gotta get into it because it is a little dry, but there's a lot of good
It's a little
information.
dry.
There's a lot of good information in there, and I learned, you learn a lot of things about the town. So as I said, it's very helpful. Any other comments from commissioners or questions?
Nice work.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going
Yes.
to say, very nice work.
Thank you
A lot
very
of
much.
work went into that.
I
Appreciate it.
appreciate that. It is a lot of work. Heather's my right arm, so I didn't do it for myself. But it is, we followed the statute, we did everything that we needed to do, and now, and the reason for this is you don't want to just write goals, objectives, and policies, not have any basis for it. So you
Right.
have to have the data to support it, and it's required by state law. So, based on this, we will make the corrections. I have a meeting with my mapper on Wednesday to make some changes that Michelle requested. So before we start future land use and transportation, I will go through all the required maps. There's 20 of them at least. 21 required maps. They would be transportation maps, future land use maps. Those are all part of it as well. So I'll go through all the maps and then get into the goals, objectives, and policies. And you may see some things about the maps you may want changed.
Okay.
But I'm happy to do that.
Madam Mayor,
Thank you. Yes, Town Manager.
you should expect on your consent agenda next week, the task order number 2, and then another presentation later on in the meeting under discussion for the next portion of the presentation.
Okay.
And one thing I do want to mention about the goals, objectives, and policies, it's very important, is you do want your attorney to review them as well.
Okay.
Because they need to make sure they actually follow the statute. Sometimes the wording, a shall versus a may, can change everything.
Okay.
And that's the kind of stuff your attorney would pick up on. So we do have a time for that attorney review of it to make sure that we meet the statute and it's worded the way it needs to be worded.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And fellow commissioners, I think that the task order is at the end of I'm sure you've seen it. But if anyone wanted to look at it or ask questions, it's there. Otherwise, bless you. Bless you. Anything else, Town Manager?
I would just ask if I may, so Bonnie, would you describe this as a playbook for municipalities?
Yes, for, 30 years. Not, but you want to change it every 7, because as things change, you have to stay up to date. And I want you to know that the reason why it's so extensive is because you haven't done it every 7 years. It's almost like you started over. But once you have this in place, the next update will be much easier and a lot less time intensive.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you. I think you did an excellent job. I appreciate it. All right. We are moving on to, item 5B, establishment of fees for public facilities use, and we have a public comment. The same guidelines as before, and we have Bonnie Flint. Come up and state your name. And if you, you already came up, but if you'll please say your name and address again for the record.
Yeah, Bonnie Flint,
Thank you.
6 Palmetto Drive. I'm glad you're addressing this. I had brought this up with Frank about a month ago. Just kind of wondering, as a citizen bystander, seeing things being used or whatever. And I think it's, I thought there was some precedent or clarification. If I might suggest, I think since town facilities are paid for by residents, it would seem to make sense to me that perhaps fees would be waived for resident, social, and personal purposes, but fees would be appropriate for non-residents, for businesses, nonprofits, that's kind of a different category than residents who are the taxpayers who form these facilities and pay for them in some way, shape, or form. I saw a mention of $30 an hour. It's hardly, that's great for somebody wanting to put on an event. But frankly, if Tina and Michelle are involved, policing, helping oversee, administer, pick up, they're being paid more than $30 an hour. I think, we need to have a little more teeth in it, and whether it should be 60 or 100, to let it know that there is some benefit to being a resident here as opposed to coming in from the outside with your $30, So that, since we are, getting tight about reviewing expenses and salaries and everything else, we've got some kind of high-priced oversight and custodial. Plus, I suspect, do you make available microphones and projectors, and then there's setup of chairs and tables? And poor Michelle doesn't need to do all this. I wouldn't think, but to the extent that one's good nature puts some, we aren't covering our costs at $30 an hour. So it seems to me that we ought to think about that. Indian Riverside Park charges way more for their upstairs room for meetings and whatnot, several hundred, as I recall. And I think we want our facilities used. If something's sitting there, certainly you want it used. But there is liability if things are broken, they wear out, if, something happens while they're here. $30 doesn't get to cover anything in my mind. So, just my thoughts on that. We either jump in or we don't.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. I appreciate it. All right, Town Manager, do you want to introduce this, please?
Sure. And I'll leave it up to you. At this point, I wasn't planning on reading the memo, but you have my memo in your backup information. Additionally, in your backup information, I've provided examples of other municipalities and what they charge. And I provided Resolution 422, which is our current established rule and regulation, if you will, for how to manage this chamber, which is also considered the community room. Things that you know as residents, if someone wanted to call and reserve the area at the park across the way, the gazebo, as a resident, you can do that. You can do that for free. And if you are a non-resident, you also can rent that, but there would be a charge, and that charge is $100. It does not give you access to the entire park. It just gives you basically the gazebo reserved. And so that's your precedent, if you will, that we already have a facility that you do offer rent options for people outside of Sewalls Point, and of course, you take care of your residents by not charging them anything for the use there. So historically, since I've been here, which is not a long history, we have had people use the chamber, the community room, for things like their HOA meetings, for the veterans group, for book club. All of those are groups of people that live in Sewalls Point. And that makes pretty good sense to me as someone who believes in the culture that you've created, which is this is a small town and we want to continue to be able to thrive together. But there's also a group of people that come and use it that are private businesses. Not everybody in the business is a resident of the town. And then that starts to get sticky. And so from a precedent standpoint, if somebody else came in and walked in and said, I'd like equal time, I would have a hard time as the administrator differentiating. And so in our efforts to try to give you great feedback and information, we found Resolution 422. And as you can see, it's from 1993. Let me put that down there for everybody to see since they're watching in the audience. So it was a while ago, and there were rules established that we are currently not following, which include not allowing people to regularly utilize this on a scheduled basis. And also they have fees established that are around that $100 range. And a few others that you read. And so I bring this information to you because staff wants to be able to fulfill your desires for how to use this room. And we just need to know how you want to do that. And so it will most likely take a change in the resolution and then an establishment of fees and an establishment of who will be paying the fees and which fees are appropriate. And so where the public to be heard portion was speaking about the $30 per hour, when I take a look at what our neighboring municipalities charge for a room, just the square footage, that's a fair average cost because we're not trying to make money on this issue. We're just trying to be net neutral. But it does not cover things like utilizing audiovisual. So for instance, the group that comes in on Mondays, they have been using the TV. They've been using our computer system, and this is wear and tear on everything. We need to consider that. Why is that important? These items are paid for by taxpayer dollars. So some of this was paid for by federal tax grants that came back to us, being the CARES Act, and some is paid for, the majority is paid for by the people that live here, the residents. So of course, the residents should get that benefit of whatever you deem the benefit is. But from a government standpoint, we need to make sure that we are being good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. And so this information is brought to you to create policy. I don't expect you to come up with the final answers tonight, but as you all know, and not everybody knows, this is your only time to discuss these things. So it's a great time for you to say what's important to you, what you think we should look at, and then direct staff on what to look at next and bring it back to you.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks, Town Manager. Before I call you, Commissioner Kurzman, I'm looking at this and I see that 1 through 3 might not be appearing. Do you have?
It's on
the
the
cop-
previous page.
Well, the next page starts on number 4.
No, I see 1 through 3, the bottom of 167.
Oh, yours is, mine,
Oh,
yours
you
is
got
different.
zoomed in. That's-
Yeah, this, okay.
Maybe your
It's
eyes-
all, yeah,
They didn't like your
yeah,
eyesight.
I got a different
Is it
one.
the
That's fine.
resolution?
Yes, yes.
It's on your screen.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
And as a reminder, speaking into the microphone, it makes it easier for everyone to hear.
Sorry about that. All right, Commissioner Kurzman.
I'd like to limit town hall itself to staff and residents for safety reasons. You have COVID and everything else going on, plus we got cleanup that goes on afterwards. It gets expensive. If it's anything that doesn't pertain to staff or residents using town hall, I would like to, if we have to do it, it'd be like $300 plus a $200 cleanup fee for the first hour and $300 an hour afterwards. And I think that's reasonable if you go out and you use any of these centers. If I have to rent an office or something and I'm out of town, to use something the size of a closet, I'm paying like $200 for the first hour. So this is a bargain, I feel, at that price. Plus, we still have to go and clean up, and as the town manager mentioned, we still have to come in, and there's wear and tear on our equipment, and then we still have to pay somebody to come in and professionally clean the place, and it gets very expensive. It's just, and also, I would 100% want to keep it off limits during working hours, so this way, any noise or anything won't affect our staff as they work. So I wouldn't make it too easy, but residents, I have no problem having the HOAs or veterans groups having this place because they are taxpayers, and this should be something they should have.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Kurzman. Commissioner Fender?
I probably fall a little more laissez-faire on this, but I would say it's good to have a documented process, and Resolution 422 seems like a place to start. Somebody's already given it some mind share. I would say that having a documented process for all kinds of things, running events are near and dear to my heart. So if there was a form that someone could come in and fill out, I would think that would be the place to start with this kind of request. But I would also ask if maybe the financial director could help me. Residents who are businesses in the town of Sewells Point, do they pay taxes, and do we benefit from any of the tax base that they generate? For instance, we're talking in this particular case about Premier, I think, and they're kind of the heart and soul of one of the heart and soul participants in our community. So, I probably wouldn't be as firm and hard as what I heard you just say, Commissioner Kurzman, because they contribute a lot to the heart and soul of our community, including Halloween and
Easter egg hunts and
all kind of stuff, yes. So, the fact that we have the question is, in that particular case, are they a resident or aren't they? That's just the unique scenario with Premier, right? But outside businesses, outside residents, there should definitely be a form and a price structure. And also that form and price structure should also be applicable to residents and local businesses also, in my opinion. If we are benefiting from a tax basis, trying to make money on renting the facility to me is, nickel and dimey, but sure, we can talk about it.
Is that it? You could also say that Premier is a resident business, they are a business, and so that might be something to consider, some leeway there for resident businesses. Commissioner Tompeck?
I hate to agree with Commissioner Fender, but I do. No, I think, I'm not quite as adamant as you are, Dave, about who we can rent this out to, but I do think that maybe the town manager, you did a great job in providing us some additional information here, which certainly indicates that the numbers you were talking about were extremely low, and it might be, I think we need to come up with the real number of how much it costs us to do something like this. And if that's, when we come up with that, I'd have no problem with modifying the resolution to put the new numbers in and go from there.
So you would want to keep the resolution as is for other aspects? Have you looked through it? Because they have time stuff, they have no weekdays, correct? Like Commissioner Kurzman said.
Yes, ma'am, and no reoccurring, and
Yeah,
a certain
once a
time that
month.
you have to,
Well,
I don't-
I think you need to go back and completely
I'd like
rehash it.
to redline it,
Yep.
bring it back and give you an option that would be workable, given the amenability you have to allowing it to be there. And, part of the fee structure is not just the hourly rate, but there would be a cost recovery there would be a cost recovery rate for prepping the room, manpower that needs to be used. And then I really do believe we need to come up with a rate that's separate for if you're going to use the audiovisual. And so all of those would be available for you to redline too, if you would like to get some choices. So I can bring all of that back to you one more time, as long as I understand what it is you're agreeable to.
Okay, let me hear what Commissioner Kurzman wants to add on.
Yeah, Once again, though, the difference between a resident and a business resident is the business is making money. And the other thing is, I don't want anything disturbing our staff, our police department, taking parking spaces over here during working hours. I'm 100% firm, set against, I don't care who it is, anybody coming in during the day, during working hours, it's off limits. This is really for the town and the staff during the day. They want to come in when the staff is gone after 6 p.m., and they want to rent it for a rate that we consider would be fair, which I still feel it's a business. Businesses make money. They're making money. They're going to pay money to come in here. I don't care who they are. I don't care if it's a pizzeria, the real estate people. We got so many businesses in here, and I don't feel that we should have to come in and pay all these cleanup fees, and also wear and tear these computers and monitors and everything else here. I'm sorry, it's too expensive. There is a cost, and also how many people come in when a business uses it. It's not like you have a handful of residents that are just having an HOA meeting. You have like 7 or 8 people. And I know that it could be noisy when they have it in here. It's very distracting to the employees that work here. And it goes all the ways across the building sometimes. So it does make a difference. Please don't confuse a business with a resident. There's a line, and that line has to be driven. You have to draw that line. They could come in if they want to pay a certain amount of money, what the going rate would be. Maybe they get a little bit more of a discount, but very little discount. I don't feel that it should be taken any differently, and this is money that could go toward, maybe we create a separate fund for future equipment and stuff that we need to buy here. Put it toward that, but it shouldn't be on the cheap either. And I'm not going to look at something that was done 30-something years ago. Those days are way outdated, because then, the average taxpayer probably paid $3,000 or $2,000 a year for property taxes. You're comparing antiques to modern day. So we need to modernize ourselves. And back then, you didn't have computers. Nobody had a computer in their office 30-something years ago. So, and pretty much your custodians are your staff right now. And we do have to use outside companies, right, to sanitize the place to keep it up because of COVID. So there's a lot of money involved, and also it means that the day after they come in, we can't use this until it's sanitized. We don't want our employees in here. There's a lot more involved.
Right. Maybe a town manager, like a chart, a rate chart that's different. You said about audiovisual and like how many people, is it I'm also, concerned about Premier, because I know that was important to them, and they are, a well-known commercial resident here, and trying to find a balance. I agree. Maybe if you could come up with the chart of costs that you think reasonable to use the facilities.
I will.
And then other commissioners, Tom Peck and Fender, currently gets used once a week. This says, I think I mentioned this a minute ago, this says once a month. Is this something you would like modified? Because I feel like that's a commission-driven decision as opposed to the town manager. It says no one place can use it more, no one applicant can do it more than once a month.
What I heard is that she was going to go back and redline the document,
Okay,
and
then
bring
we-
it up to date.
Whole thing.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
just Update
Okay.
it to whatever's appropriate, and we'll talk about it.
I was just trying to
Yeah.
bring in Commissioner Kurzman's concerns too, so, okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I'm hearing you all, and as an opportunity to play devil's advocate, one of the things I want to just put out there is recognizing that we have currently one larger business that wants to use it for their meeting room. I kind of equate it to I hope this doesn't come off insensitive, but food trucks. So I love food trucks. Do you love food trucks? Some cities have banned food trucks from coming into their municipal boundaries. Why? Because the restaurants that are currently in those areas say, hey, I pay taxes here. I pay taxes for this amount of square footage, and I can't expand it without having to pay more money. So why do you let these people come in and get it for either free or a permit fee? So here, we have an entire city that has a municipality that we just heard is 2% commercial. So of that 2% commercial, we have one business that is utilizing our space as a meeting space. Now, it's been for free. So every other business in the area, to play devil's advocate, may say to you, wait a minute, I don't expand, or I did expand. I expanded my business so that I could have my meetings here. Now I'm paying more square footage tax revenue to you. How is that fair? So I want to make sure that you hear both sides and know that if you were opening it up for private businesses, it will be for all private businesses, whether we like them or not.
You couldn't establish resident businesses?
You can establish,
Meaning
well,
like
we'll check
the
with,
bounds?
we're going to have to check with legal. I believe we'll be able to establish fees for local resident businesses and then fees for outside businesses.
So you could,
Once you establish it, it will be
Yeah.
established. What I'm saying to you is that I need you to recognize this is a government building. We have to live by these rules. If an agency, a company, a private company comes here that you particularly don't like and wants to utilize this facility, we will then be incurring legal bills to make sure that we're doing it the right way to say no.
okay.
I just want to provide the devil's advocacy piece.
No,
on that,
I appreciate
okay?
all sides. I'm curious if you can make that delineation. I'd have to consult the lawyer about a resident business versus a non-resident, but.
And the more important piece is, as you're saying, they already pay taxes here, right? When residents already pay their home property taxes, we want them to be able to come join other residents and come together and bond and socialize. When businesses pay taxes here, and we want to encourage them from an economic development standpoint to expand their business, to expand their square footage. That should be our goal, is to expand that, to get beyond 2% so that the businesses are helping to offset the cost from the residents. It's very difficult long-term with budgets that are 90% more or more, all residential.
Okay.
So these are just options that you should weigh out for your long-term vision.
This is why we have a workshop to talk
That's
these
right.
things over.
But we will do exactly what you've asked, which is redline that document to make it appropriate to our current culture, and you'll have a chance to see it at least one more time before we start moving into the direction of fees.
Okay, and Commissioner Fender wanted to say something, and you will be making the fees to, because you guys know best, you and Cheryl, the costs that are incurred, the real costs for,
Correct. And our goal is to, again, be net neutral, and we're not looking to make money on it, but
Correct.
we're trying to make sure that we're not, because if we're not making money, if, in order for us to stay net neutral, that means that the taxpayers are not subsidizing that business. If we, in any way, are in the negative on that deal, for somebody to use our electricity, our audio and visual equipment, our facility, our air condition, then that means that the people that pay taxes, ad valorem taxes here, are personally subsidizing each business that uses it.
okay, thank you. Commissioner Fender.
I think I'm just going to hold my comments until after we see the red line.
Okay. And will that come back for a workshop before, with the red line, or we'll talk about it later?
I think it'll need to be a workshop
Okay.
item first.
Okay. All right, so town manager will redline it, give it her best shot, and then we will look at it at another workshop. Seeing no more comments, let's move to item C, the Island Road Bridge, landscape request from HOA. Public comment, we have Chuck Lowell. You want to come up, please, and state your name and address for the record?
I'm Charles Lowell, 7 West High Point. I agree with a little, will you do it or not?
Yeah, Tom just walked out. Tom, please.
And I'll try and really limit the story.
Yeah, that's fine.
Basically, I made a little PDF thing.
Okay. Okay.
Documentation type stuff. There's also
Can you show what he brought
Okay.
you up on the big screen?
Okay.
All right, we have it.
He hasn't started, he just said something, he'll talk into the mic.
Me?
Yes, now this is public comment time. Did you want to say your comment and then show the pictures, or do you want to wait till they're up? Meaning, do you want to, are you,
Yeah, wait till we're up.
okay,
They're up.
okay.
So we just go like real quick. Basically, this is the town hall. And this is the park.
Town hall, start again.
This is the town hall, and I just want to show the landscaping that's here.
Say yes.
I'm not saying yes to anything.
At the Island Road area. The next one. This is a park that we have next in High Point. We did it as a joint project with Sewalls Point and High Point. If you go to the next picture, just real quick, this is what it was before. You just keep going, just real quick. You can see what it looked like. And this is really, yeah, okay. So this is the Island Road Bridge that we're talking about. And the condition that it's in, and primarily, not only the planting, but there's ties around there. I don't know who has the thing, but just keep clicking through it.
Oh, that must be as of today.
Yeah, which you can't read. That's basically, keep going. Basically, that is, there was an option to ties, which was recommended by the landscape. So basically, we wanted the soil out of the water. There's a bit of a pitch there. Yes, no, just be really quick, because that document's pretty long. I was asked to provide some information on the trees.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Did you want to elaborate on what you were requesting, or did you want the town, we have a memo, or we had a memo?
Well, I
Did you
didn't
want,
see the memo. What we're requesting is that we fix that up and make it look like belongs to Sewalls Point.
right, and,
We were going to contribute High Point to the project.
okay,
I didn't see your memo, so.
okay, all right. Okay, and then we'll, if we have any questions, we can call, well, how about the town manager introduce, and then if we have any questions, we will
great,
ask. Does that
thanks.
sound good? All right, town manager.
Sure. Were these pictures, this one and the others that are in, with the items removed, are these from today or yesterday? And most current? Okay, okay. Okay, I think on this one, I'm going to read some of the memo. So you have the memo in front of you. The High Point HOA has requested assistance with the replacement of landscaping along the Island Road Bridge. This is how the conversation started with the HOA representative and myself. When I met with the HOA representatives, I shared that the commission has been supportive in the past for items related to our bridges. I also offered to review information available for grants through FIND, the Florida Inland Navigational District. However, I was unable to identify one that would be applicable in this case. So checking historic actions, it does not appear that the town has planted or maintained the landscape for the bridge in the past. This means it is a new request and one that the town commission must sanction, if the commission deems appropriate. The town's landscape contractor visited the site and raised concerns about the difficulties of the area for planting, including irrigation. The landscape contractor recommended a low, this is if you decide to go with plantings, a low drought and salt-tolerant ground cover if there were to be new landscaping without irrigation. It currently does not have irrigation. I have requested a quote for this type of landscape, however, for the commission's understanding, however, it's not available at the time of publishing here. I mentioned this to the HOA representative at the time. He was not excited about the ground cover idea, as he was preferring something flowering and, of course, beautiful for the area. The HOA representative feels confident they can make arrangements for irrigation to be installed. So then I partnered with our town engineer and actually walked the bridge after he and his partner engineer walked the bridge with them. The town's engineer, who is here for your availability, is not supportive of planting anything other than sod at this location. Actually, he would prefer not to plant anything at all, potentially just concreting the area to eliminate the risk of the plant roots compromising the integrity of the structures. As a matter of fact, as you can see, if you go on the northeast side of the bridge, there's a rogue plant that has rooted itself. It's a bougainvillea inside of what was once a small crack in the drainage pipe, which has now become a large one. As the plant grows, so will the crack. At this particular example location is a superficial crack, however, it offers a visual of the potential damage. So next steps for the commission are really a policy decision. And since we don't have precedents of commissions in the past offering support at that particular location, that was one reason that I had to bring it to you. Secondarily, I see where the town has worked with the Satin Leaf Club in the past on gardening projects, but it is rare for the commission again to take the taxpayer dollars and offer them back to common properties that belong to either HOAs or neighborhoods. So I had to bring this back to you before we start to designate monies. I believe that the specific ask, I would turn it back to the gentleman on the specific ask, but I believe his specific ask was for us to take care of the west side of the bridge, and he was going to take care of the east side of the bridge with his HOA for plantings. Before going back and forth, I would ask you to be open and take an opportunity to hear from your town engineer about the structural integrity of the bridge.
Okay, thank you, Town Manager. That sounds reasonable. I'd also had requested beforehand if you could show us which is where the town-owned property is and where the, I think you provided us with the printout.
Correct. So you have a printout of the map, so you can see the common area properties, which are the towns on the side of the bridge itself as it leads up to the area. Some of the added complications, it's not a difficulty because we'll figure this all out. It's not, I mean, this isn't, at this point, it's not life or death. We're just trying to make sure something's pretty and also doesn't interfere with the structural integrity of a bridge that needs to be serviced. But we had the schedule to talk tonight, and I had asked for patience from the HOA representative. And unfortunately, yesterday, our chief of police was doing the right thing and taking a tour of the town down south, and we happened upon construction that was going on the bridge right-of-ways, the common areas itself that belong to the town. And so the HOA representatives had hired somebody to remove the current planting that was there, so that what you see here in the picture that I asked, is this from yesterday or today? That's what it currently looks like, because the bougainvillea that was there, which honestly I don't know how it even who planted it, is currently ripped out. And then they were in the process of taking out those timbers that were there, and they were going to replace the timbers. I directed the landscaper to stop working. Because if there is runoff happening on that location and erosion happening, that could just be the case that potentially there's just erosion happening. But it could be a symptom of something else. So before we move forward with camouflaging it and covering it up with more landscaping, I want to make sure that we have our engineers go out there and walk the project and okay it. I don't think it should be something for any layman, other than a structural engineer, to take a look at and approve new landscaping, one, irrigation that might compromise the integrity, two, and then also putting back landscape timbers that go in with severe, I don't know what you would call it, the nails and such that they put them in with, in an area that needs to be investigated. So that's why I ask you to get some guidance from your engineer prior to making decisions.
All right, so do you want to hear from Joe
Yes.
before you go? Okay. Town engineer, would you please come up to the lectern and offer us your insight and knowledge?
Well, first of all, this is Joe Capper, town engineer, and we did go out there and look at the bridge. And I think everybody should just kind of recognize we have 3 bridges in town. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
We have 3 bridges in town, and they do take a certain amount of maintenance, and I just want you to understand this bridge has some maintenance that have to be done, and do the other two. Basically, we have certain, we had an underwater diver go and check. We have the walls. First of all, you have the bridge itself, which have abutments and piles and so forth. This one doesn't really have piles, it has more of abutment supports. And basically what happens is we have sealant that we have to put in the cracks and the adjacent. We have concrete sheets that go along underneath the bridge and along the side. And this is a fairly old bridge. It's one of our older bridges, of course. And but whether it's old or not, they do require quite a bit of maintenance from the town. And I only caution you on some of this. It's not that I'm not against making something look really nice looking, pretty, and so forth, but let's talk about what we're putting there and what impact it'll have on the town. So first of all, timing is probably not very good right now to do a major replanting of that, because we are going to be fixing and sealing the sides, the sheet piles on the bridge, but also we are discovering that there is some settlements that we are actually monitoring right now as you approach the bridge. So I think it's probably a good time to step back and think about what we want to put out there permanently. And again, I think what your things that come to mind is typically we put trees next to the bridges. We had a major problem with hurricanes during Francis and Jean, where we had to replace the one on Samara Street, for example. We had a lot of work to do there, and we basically had to put we put some places from palm trees. We made sure that was set up for that so that they were away from the walls and so forth. I think if everybody goes and looks at that, they are not going to like the looks of it right now. It doesn't look very good. There's concrete on the surface. I just don't find it that attractive.
You're talking about Samara.
That's on Samara Street. And so I'm not saying that that's what you want to do. I'm just telling you that those are things that we, even at that level of concrete and everything, there's a certain amount of maintenance. But if we were to put plants that have a lot of root movement and so forth, they're going to go and they're going to find the water, and they're obviously going to separate things, which is something we are trying to fix right now on all the bridges. So I really think we need to think about what type of plants we put there. So I personally believe you need a plan submitted, and we need to look at it for basically the impact from roots. We also need to look at it for the impact of erosion is most important on all of these things. I think, we are going through a major infrastructure look at the town in the sense of sea level rise, resiliency, and so forth. And I'd hate to see you go put something out there that I'm going to have to tear out because it doesn't consider those issues. That doesn't mean we can't find something that'll look nice and we can put it there, but I don't think we've had time to look at that in this case. Whether you maintain it or the residents, POAs, Property Owners Association maintain it, I mean, that's your call. I'm not going to say one way or the other. I don't think that's fine. That's something that really that you pay me to do. I think you really need to decide who wants to maintain it. But it is going to take maintenance, and I think you need to make sure it's regularly maintained. And you should know that we get bridge reports every 2 years by the DOT, and they tell us things that have to be fixed on our bridges. And it's not only the bridge itself, it's the approaches, it's the guardrails. There are guardrails on this bridge. Again, there's probably a lot of things we could do to this bridge to make it more attractive. Plantings would be one of them. I'm not saying that it won't be, but I think we do have a lot of things that we do maintain on the bridges. And unfortunately, it's getting to be more and more expensive to find people to fix these things. And so that's something we, unfortunately, we're at right now, because we've had a contract pending, so for some of this work since January, and we've had we've called this guy probably 24 times since then to get out there and start this work, and he hasn't started it. And to be honest with you, our cost on that from this one bidder was significantly lower than the other two, and otherwise we wouldn't be waiting for them, right? To be honest with you, we had one from $43,000 to $313,000. So be ready to see a large increase when I go to the next bidder, because that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a very high cost. And so I only tell you that because it's just another reason why we should take our time and look at this. I agree with the resident, they want to make it look nice, we want to make it look nice too, but we need to consider the timing for this, and that's my main objective. The last thing I'm going to bring to your attention, and we tend to let the people that in the water communities where our bridges are use these areas to dredge and take the material off the dredges at these bridges. Every time we've done that, and it's basically, there has been damage to the seawalls, okay? Most of it, we don't find out about it because they come in, they do it, they leave, and so forth. And, you know, I'm very cautious about what you allow near these bridges because it's a lot of maintenance. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not for people being able to dredge these canals because obviously, you know, we need to keep them clean and so forth. But, you know, I think we really need to think about, because of all the things we're doing on maintenance, because of all the things we're doing for resiliency and infrastructure improvements, you know, I think there needs to be a plan of what this is going to look like, how it's going to be maintained, who's going to maintain, who's paying for it, because it can get expensive when these impacts start happening to the bridge.
Thank you, Joe. Did you want to stay up here in case I got some questions? All right, Commissioner Fender, you were first.
Just a few things. First off, let me preface anything we say here by the fact that I think that I'm completely in support of supporting the HOA and also the work you guys did on the Island Road, the River Road Island is amazing and looks awesome. In fact, my kids have a geocache hidden on that island, so go out and find it.
That's you guys also.
Say it again?
That's you guys also.
Yeah, oh, that's right.
Also, there is a,
Wait, excuse me, Charles, when you come, will you speak into the microphone, please, and then it goes on the record?
that's also the town also takes credit for that, but there's also a garden, you may know, Kyle.
Garden
Satin
Club,
Leaf,
yeah.
the Satin Leaf Club, right? Yes, the Satin
Yeah,
Leaf Club.
that maintains that
Yeah.
makes it look so nice.
Sure, that's awesome. So that said, all the work I heard, I guess I just looking to see some kind of design from both what the HOA likes and what the engineer requires, right? So I think we can thread that needle somehow and support the effort of beautification, which I completely favor. I do have one more question about the jump from 43K to 333,000. How is that lower bidder, he's defunct, or are we just going to keep pursuing him? I mean, can we keep pursuing?
We are pursuing them.
I mean, they're still in business, right?
Yeah, they're still in business, and they told us last week that they are going to show up.
Okay, so you are talking to someone?
Yeah,
and they know.
well,
Okay,
we
all right,
talked
well,
to
I
them,
could be patient
and
for
they've taken us a
$300,000.
while, so I just want you to know. This time, well, for about 20 of, I'm sorry, did I say 20 times that we've talked?
You said 24 was
24, yeah.
specifically, yeah.
Probably of the 24 times, the last 2 times he's at least picked up the phone, so.
All right. What is it, what are we having him do for us, just to remind me?
Pardon me?
What's he doing for us, just as a reminder?
Basically, he does everything underwater, and he has to seal the bridge.
On that bridge we're talking about?
The bridge,
Yeah.
the specific bridge we're talking,
Yeah.
well, he's doing all the bridges, to be
Oh,
honest with you,
okay.
but he's doing this one, too.
I got it.
So,
Awesome.
Okay. Is that good?
For now.
Commissioner Fender? All right. Commissioner, yes, Charles?
Sure.
Will you please come up to the microphone?
This, I guess, goes also to the town engineer. Can we just call his bonding company? The bonding company take over? And that wouldn't be any more costly to the town, correct?
Well, the problem we have, he hasn't signed the contract, okay? That's, he hasn't signed his, which he hasn't provided his bond or his insurance. We have a bid, and technically he's supposed to sign it. Don't get me wrong, there's things that we could have done with our attorneys and basically avoided the bids. But as I told you, the difference in cost, this is going to cost the town a lot of money at a time that they've already spent a lot of money on infrastructure. So I'm trying to kind of
I appreciate that.
wait some time on this. Don't get me wrong, I'm not happy. We've been here for quite a while. We've never had a contractor that has done what he is doing, but again, we're in a pandemic. We got all sorts of excuses that are out there nowadays, and so I've been trying to be patient with them, but you can expect the next bid is going to be significantly higher than what this gentleman is. So if he doesn't show up here in the next month, I'm going to tell you, we're going to have to say, we're no longer going to consider your bid and consider you as the contractor, and we're going to have to go to bid. That's what we're going to have to do.
Okay, thanks.
Is the problem that he underbid so low that he can't really do this job?
I don't think that's it.
Okay, all
I
right.
think it's just, he's probably busy on other jobs, and that's what we seem to find with most of them,
All right.
Okay.
so.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Tompeck?
We had a couple of questions. Joe, first of all, is that wall, that bulkhead secured by dead men? Is there a dead man in there somewhere?
Yes, there's dead men in their concrete sheets, yep.
Okay. For these older bridges, when you do some excavation, you look at these dead men, there's not much left.
That's right, they're rusted out, and we've had a lot of that.
They start out as, rebar this thick and turn into pretzels in about 10 or 15 years. I was curious about the east side. I went out and looked at today, and there is vegetation on the east side. Is that currently, is there irrigation on the east side right now?
I didn't see, I see irrigation coming to it, but I did not check for irrigation. I really don't know for sure.
You might know. I don't know if Charles knows. Do you know?
The plants look pretty good, so I'm assuming there probably is irrigation over there.
Currently, there is no irrigation.
No irrigation on the east
The
side.
park that we own, we call it the pocket park. It's very easy to bring irrigation in. What my thoughts were is on the east side, north, there's looks like a stub up. Somebody had, the homeowner allowed the association at one point to use their water. Just like I mentioned, that park that we have, the resident there allows us to use the water. So the thought was to just contact the homeowners and see if we could just hook up a little bit of drip irrigation. Should be good.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Commissioner Tompeck, any other questions?
Yeah, just I guess the last question is, and I don't know if I necessarily understand the history here. In the past, have we supported HOAs in this area? In other words, I've seen requests come in where an HOA has asked us to put a sign or something, but they're essentially paying for it. Have there been other cases where an HOA has come in and asked us to financially support this? And of course, the corollary question to that is, I assume there's nothing in the budget for this.
Town manager, those are questions for you.
So my job is to be the person that says no before it comes to you typically. And in the 2 years that I've been here, I have not had an HOA that we have contributed monies towards on their common area. Recently, you approved the use of, or you approved Mandalay neighborhood to have a specific sign placed on a common property. And they paid for that sign, actually, an individual that was here in the audience, yes, Mr. Webb's here. They paid for the sign, and specifically, they also pay for the watering, another resident pays for the watering of that property, and then there's other islands that I am told that's how they survive. The residents closest to those immediate islands are the ones that are designated as the caregivers, if you will. But other than supporting the Satin Leaf Garden Club in ancillary ways, I'm not aware of anything else. And we are currently involved with the volunteer work from the Satin Leaf Garden Club to work at the park, but that's for the general public's.
Real quick, before I get to Commissioner Kurzman, this area in question, though, according to the map, though, is the town property, correct? It was just that the homeowners association and the resident wanted to
Beautify it.
share the cost per se with more, with input as to what to put in that area. Is that,
As far as we can see on the map from the property appraisers and every informational map we have, that, that bridge belongs to the town of Sewell's Point, and the common area on the sides
Okay.
belongs to the town of Sewell's Point as well.
okay. I think that makes a difference in terms of us paying for it. Commissioner Kurzman?
Yes, I wouldn't want to see the town spend any more money. We spent so much money over the past year. I don't want to, no offense, but, if we just put the cheap grass like we put in other common areas in Sewell's Point, that's what we would do. If they want to put plantings or something there, specific plants, that should be on the HOA, as well as any potential water bill or anything else. The town shouldn't have to incur any more expenses. We're already going to pay for a bridge, which is going to cost us a lot, plus we still have 2 more bridges we're going to have to replace. We can't print the money. And, it becomes, after a while, you just got to start saying no to everything, and that's the point I think we're at right now. Please, yes.
Up to the mayor.
Yes, please.
Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
you can come, if Commissioner Kurzman, you good with it? Commissioner Kurzman, you want to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I'd like to, yes.
How are you?
Yeah,
So,
there.
anyway, we have no problem paying for the plantings.
Okay,
What
then-
we're asking, if you look at, well, even that picture, there's a railroad tie that was there at one point in time. And a railroad tie is not the correct word, a timber tie that was there many, many years ago, which is probably why there's no record of the town incurring any cost there. If you guys take care of the railroad ties and whatnot, we have no problem taking care of the planting. Not an issue. And
Okay.
that needs to be addressed. There's soil that's going to run into the water.
Can I offer
Mayor?
something, Commissioner Kurzman?
Madam Mayor, if I may, real quick?
Yes.
So first, I want to make sure I give direction to my building official. We need a silt fence put up around that pretty immediately. So if you could enforce that for us, we'd appreciate that. So when you, sir, when you call Mario your landscaper, he's going to need to put a silt fence up right now to keep that sand from going, that soil to going into the river. Okay, thank you. Additionally, that gentleman who is the landscaper, we weren't sure when or who put the railroad ties in either. His feedback to the chief and myself was that it looked like it's been done within the last year and that they were eroding. So, we want to take a look at also why is it eroding? It's a piece of wood. If that's been there for less than a year, it eroded fast. When did it get put in? Who put it in? These are all questions we don't know the answers to.
Okay.
More importantly, we just need to make sure that it's stable.
Okay. Okay, to Commissioner, I believe Commissioner Fender said this, everything with the engineer's approval, because the most important thing is keeping that bridge safe and secure and, but working together, and if the homeowners association can come up with a plan and then, what was your phrase? Weave it together, thread the
Thread it.
thread the
Thread the
needle
needle,
to
he
get
says.
that to work, and I think that would be a good direction. You guys agree?
And before you do, if I may, just, one of the things I heard you say, Mayor, is the difference here is that that's property belongs to the town.
Yes.
Correct? I want to remind you that the islands belong to the town as well. So for instance, Mr. Webb that's sitting in the audience that
Yeah.
was kind enough to pay for the sign that welcomes
Yes.
everybody to Mandalay, and his neighbor pays for the irrigation that happens on that island belongs to the town.
Okay, so that's a good input, and I believe
Yeah.
the resident said
All
that
of
they
it
would
do.
pay for the planting, so if we can just get the approval from the town engineer that, assuming that the contractor comes and does the work first, you were asking for a little delay or to make sure that gets underway, so we could agree to delay it, get the work done, and then come up with a plan that is good for the town and the HOA.
Yes, and the plan would need to also include maintenance, and then it's also going to need to include how we're going to ensure that we don't have runoff happening into the river for our NPDES program. And additionally, as you heard from our town engineer, the same homeowners association pays for the dredging. So they take care of their own dredging, which is wonderful because that adds a value.
I think that's a separate group. that
Oh, is
pays
it a
for the-
separate?
It is.
A separate HOA then,
Yeah.
pays for the dredging for that same area, and their DEP permit allows for the offloading to happen right there next to that bridge, not on it, but next to it. And at first, one of my first weeks, I stopped them because they were on the bridge. Well, now they're appropriately staging next to the bridge. However, that barge repeatedly with the current hits the bridge. And you can see the damage that has occurred over the course of time from the barge bopping against it while they're offloading.
Yes.
And so between the sand that comes off of their claw as they're offloading and the impacts of it hitting there, that is an expense, again, that the town will have to incur when you go to repair this. These are things that, long-term, I would make a suggestion that if the DEP is giving a permit to offload in our town, then we should have a permit process that they have to apply for here that would at least offset costs of their big trucks with their heavy weights going down our roads and staging by the bridges that get impacted, that your residents then have to pay to fix when they
Right.
damage it.
That's a good point for when that is happening. Commissioner Tombeck?
Yeah, Joe, I just had, I was looking at this particular slide up here, and I looked at it today, and I'm interested in this particular design. You see the cut timbers there, and some of them are twisted, and that can't be a real design. Can it? Rube Goldberg do that, or what?
Well, that was done in like 64.
Okay, because I mean,
When they
that's,
built the bridge, they put that guardrail in, as you see it there, in that concrete there. So it's been there a while. I think one of the things to kind of just recognize, we own these bridges, and we have usually a seawall, which we do on 4 sides of this one. And those seawalls tie to adjacent properties, in this case, private properties, and then on one side there's a POA property. And I think it's important to recognize we sometimes have to fix our seawalls, and we have to encourage them to fix their seawalls, okay? And so I think I'm trying to tell you is there is a certain amount of cooperation between us and those property owners. I think one of the problems we have that the town manager is saying is we have numerous property owners associations out there. This property owners association, for example, there's a big circle when you come into it. They maintain that. They maintain their pillars and so forth in the landscaping they put around it, and they plant it and they maintain it. And we can see as we are moving from south to north, we're going to see a lot more requests like this. So you really need to decide, do you want to get into the, not so much that they're not going to pay for the plans, but the maintenance of this is what's going to be, is going to take some money. And somebody's going to monitor it. Are you going to mow it enough times for the residents? Is there going to be somebody's special colored plant that they don't like? I mean, there's a lot of things to think about on this. And I'm saying we know we want to have a tree city and we want to have all these nice things, but and we want to cooperate with but I think we need to really think about how much more this is going to cost us. And I'm not against it. To be honest with you, we do complete streets all the time. You know, everything that we've been hearing from Bonnie, you know, we want to make sure it's walkable, bicycles, we want everything to look nice and so forth. I get that, but I think we need to think about, we currently don't have this money in the budget to do that. So, I mean, we can figure out a way to make it work, I'm sure, with the right kind of plants and everything, but it's going to take maintenance.
No, that's a good point about the future and the other areas, and right now we'll focus on fixing the bridge, and it, you know, it doesn't look good as it is, so it does need something. I don't think that's up to most people's standards as to how our common property looks. So fix the bridge, get the engineers sign off, come up with a plan that makes everyone happy, and then we will go from there.
Madam Mayor, lastly, so, you know, areas like the roundabouts, India Lucis roundabout that have been taken care of by by those HOAs, they look beautiful, but there may be an opportunity for us just to rethink what a bridge beauty looks like.
Right.
And so maybe it's, more hardscaped as the entrance, vertical columns, but we can go through some of those ideas and kind of brainstorm that. Longer term, though, as you think about the growth of the town, and how you want to identify different neighborhoods, High Point, India Lucy, Homewood areas, whatever it may be, there may be an opportunity to bring in those individual communities into a town hall-like setting where, not all of you are here, but one representative is here, and speak through what they would like to see in the future and see if they're open to creating an MSBU for their specific community. So it's a benefit, taxing unit. It would be only as much as they think they want to spend to beautify their area above and beyond what a municipality would do. But if they wanted to build a structure, if they wanted to, create maintenance plans that are long-term, or if they wanted to add plants, they would be able to decide how much and how to tax themselves. And then our comptroller at the county could collect that, and it wouldn't have anything to do with the town of Sewalls Point, but it would enable neighborhoods to identify exactly what their neighborhood entrances and livable areas would look like.
That's a good idea. It's a good idea to talk about. And
Long-term workshop with the
long-term,
public.
I think the homeowners associations might appreciate that. Okay, and seeing no more comments from my fellow commissioners, let's move to commission and staff closing comments.
Can we give clarification to the resident
Oh, yes.
for next steps on this?
I had kind of summed it up. Did you have any other questions about how I summed it up? Charles, if you wanted to come, yeah.
No, it's all,
Okay.
you did a good job.
Okay.
The maintenance of that area would be by High Point.
Okay.
The plans take care of it.
Okay.
And Madam Mayor, for the audience's edification, why this gentleman is able to get up and down, because this is a conversation with him, because this is a request that he made to the commission. So it's actually, and I was assisting him with the request, and
Yeah,
that's
and
why.
it's on the agenda.
He's not a public to be heard person, he's actually the person, the applicant.
I had said,
I will follow.
he filled out the card, so
He
he
did it-
said public comment, and he showed his pictures, and then, but it was on the agenda.
He was extra courteous on filling that out. So I will call Mario on our behalf tomorrow, and then I will follow up with you as well for our next steps, okay?
Okay, all right, thank you. Staff comments?
Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Charles, for helping.
I have just one announcement that I'm looking to put into communication as we, send out some emails in the future. But this is something I just learned this week with talking with Martin County Utilities regarding North Sewell's Point septic to sewer. So we are having great success with connections. So connectivity is going well. But one of the things they want to make sure we offer the new residents in North Sewell's Point is the opportunity to get connected. And so remembering we had a one-year deadline, that one-year deadline ended right at the end of summer for the people up there, if they connected, to get that discounted rate. What I didn't know is that if you're a new resident in North Sewell's Point Road, you have a year from the time you move in to be able to also take advantage of that discounted rate. So it can be as low as $7,000 for a new resident within that year. If you go outside of that anniversary date of 1 year, then it goes back to the normal $10,000 per home.
I didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
very good.
that's new information. I wanted to share that. Any updates from my police chief or staff? No? We are good, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
All right, any commissioner comments? All right, I have a couple, but Commissioner Thompson.
I'm a troublemaker again. A couple of things. Number one, I guess, I know we've temporarily delayed the evaluation of the town manager, but at the same time, I know that we've all filled out evaluation forms, and I was wondering if you were going to go ahead and distribute those.
I thought,
You are a troublemaker.
I mean, obviously, they are yours to be had. I think
Well,
they're on the,
What I'm getting at here is that if we get a chance to look at them, instead of having them put on our desk the day before the evaluation, might be a better idea, that's all.
yeah, absolutely,
So if you could maybe get those distributed, I'd appreciate it.
absolutely.
I guess I do want to address Bonnie Flint's comment. I'm not sure where some of the information comes from that I see on Facebook and some other places. But there, as far as I know, there's no state statute or anything that tells us we have to move from septic to sewer. Doesn't exist. Now, in my opinion, we're not far away from that happening, but there is nothing right now that requires us to do that. And I guess I saw another comment too that disturbed me a little bit about the potential for the loan that we may be getting for finishing up some of the work on South Sewells Point Road, and the fact that somebody had posted something about the fact that was only going to cover the interest and not the principal. Well, I have no idea how anybody could come up with that conclusion since we haven't even taken a look at what the loan is going to look like. So let's maybe calm down just a tad and let's see how these things work out before we go any further, that's all.
Thank you. All right, I had a few comments. First of all, committee appointments, remember we do that in November when mayor time comes around. I should have brought my form, but I'm on the Treasure Coast Regional League of Cities, and I know you guys are appointed, so I was looking for, I got thinking about it because November's next month and getting updates from you guys. Now, Vice Mayor's not here. He's on the MPO, which is a very important one, so I was hoping for an update, but do you guys have any updates from your boards? What's going on? No?
I don't.
Right. Okay. Treasure Coast Regional League of Cities is they are into home rule. I spent many hours this summer, this is not necessarily related to home rule, but working on their bylaws and policies and procedures. So those are all updated. And they are very active in the legislative session and giving the towns and cities viewpoints to the legislators. They have a whole committee, the advocacy group. And if you guys ever have any issues that you want, that group goes up there and they advocate for the cities. So if you guys have any issues that you want to, and start thinking about next year, what you want to do, or anyways, just a comment to you guys.
Yep.
And then ribbon cutting. We were discussing, we had a groundbreaking ceremony for phase one. Well, phase one is almost done. And we had thought about doing a ribbon cutting for the completion, or I don't know if you guys are interested in celebrating that milestone.
Sure.
We could do a date, town manager, I think, and Joe, it's supposed to be done in the next week or so, correct? 2 weeks? 2 weeks?
I'd like to see that sign come down.
The paving?
No, I'm not sure if they're gonna, I don't want to say.
Do you want to go up to the, just for the, sorry.
I'm
I
interested.
don't think he wants to.
Yeah. He doesn't want to.
Yeah, I don't want to say that they're going to be done in another week,
Okay.
So we might want to push any event back for at least 30 days, so we got everything in place. I'd certainly like to make sure everything's growing well.
Okay.
A little punch list work, I'm sure we'll see some of that. So that's all I'm saying.
No, I appreciate that. So that kind of helps. I was looking maybe at the beginning of November or the beginning of December, and then the local elected officials will be done with session. I believe that Senator Harrell said she was free in December, so if you guys are open to that, if you like that, yes or no, speak now.
Yay.
Yeah.
Number 6 date?
Okay. And, the item that Commissioner Fender brought up earlier that the town manager mentioned, the joint meeting this week that the county is having with other municipalities. Could you elaborate on that, town manager, a little bit? Because at first I heard of it was your email.
Sure. And Bonnie was very helpful on this, too. So this is a concurrency meeting. And so concurrency meetings are when municipalities and their governing agencies or the counties come together to collaborate and make sure that they're making plans together for not just short-term but long-term goals. That's part of our comp plan requirements, actually, and the county has them and every municipality has them. Thursday, the City of Stewart and the Village of Indiantown and the school board are meeting collaboratively in a joint meeting session with the Board of County Commissioners from Martin County. Their premise on this meeting, their main premise, is to discuss the school needs for the schools within those specific municipalities. And additionally, they're going to speak to other capital improvement projects that they're working on together. Well, we have capital improvement projects, too, that we're working on with Martin County. We have North Sewalls Point Road, which has been a major contributor to the regional traffic, not just our local traffic in this last year. And we actually have a project, capital project worth about $13 million that we share with the county on that road, because it's a county road that you guys and the Board of County Commissioners have prioritized within the local mitigation strategy plan. And so that's one example of something that you're working on with Martin County. Additionally, everything that has to do with water mains and septic to sewer conversions, and then the new hookups, also Martin County Utilities, and then the City of Stewart provides our fire service. So there's multiple reasons for joint meetings to occur. I don't think historically this board has met regularly with the Martin County Board of County Commissioners. I remember the mayor brought it up in the beginning of your term as mayor. It was something that you had asked to occur. And when we got feedback from Martin County, it was, why doesn't the mayor just reach out to her commissioner, Commissioner Smith, and then see how it goes from there? But truly, it's not just about the one-on-ones. There's a state statute that regulates that we must plan together. And then do you remember we had an emergency meeting to adopt the local mitigation strategy? I mean, these are things that we could have done at a joint meeting, is really just prioritize that. And there's no reason for you. You are an elected body, elected here by your residents to represent their needs. There's no reason for you not to sit down across a table with the Board of County Commissioners and say, here's what our residents need, just to update them, and then be able to negotiate, if you will, on your needs and making sure that what gets budgeted in Martin County still remains a priority or sees Sewell's Point as a priority. There's only so much your staff can do when we're dealing with the other staff. Truly, the frank way for me to say this is, every once in a while you got to flex your muscles. You're an elected board. If they're not meeting with you willingly, demand to meet with them. And if you don't think that's appropriate, refer back to the state statute that says you're supposed to be meeting, and then make sure that you get what you have coming for your residents, because the residents here pay not only a Sewell's Point tax, they pay a Martin County tax.
Gotcha.
And so you want to make sure that you're getting everything you can for them.
Yes, and we weren't the only municipality not invited. There was Jupiter Island and Ocean Breeze, and I was considering going and giving them public comment and just, saying that, hey, I like that you guys are meeting, and don't forget about us, essentially.
There's a value to going, and the mayor, congratulating them on their joint meeting, but then also maybe reading off a list of your top priorities that you look forward to collaborating with Martin County with.
How do you guys feel about that? I mean, it makes sense that it was primarily school-related, and there was no school in those municipalities, Ocean Breeze, Sewell's Point, and Jupiter Island. And that is why I believe the meeting only included City of Stuart and Indian Town. But I think it would be beneficial for the town to just, make our,
Request a meeting.
request. Anyways.
Well,
yeah, how do you-
I'm looking at the agenda here, and they're talking about county capital improvement projects. I'm not sure that's just related to schools. It looks like that's a lot more than just schools.
Okay,
And the
Right.
same thing with county and large-scale development projects.
yeah, all the more reason to,
So, yeah, when you told me, I thought it was about schools. That seems to be a small part of this agenda.
okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. That was when I reached out to have a better understanding about why the town of Sewell's Point and the town of Jupiter Island and Ocean Breeze were separated out. The information I received back was it was going to be a school-oriented conversation.
Okay.
And so I wanted to provide you with the actual agenda.
Thank you. Commissioner Fender?
So just so on the topic, I'm just curious how much interaction as a staff you guys have with, on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis. I mean, there seemed to be a little bit back when I was more involved, but it seems like, I don't know about flexing muscles, but certainly we should be represented in almost every interaction. Even if we're not invited,
Yeah.
we should have a representation there. And we shouldn't go with the chip on our shoulder. We should go with our legislative agenda of what's sort of documented in our comp plan and the short list of bullet items of the hot topics that we're working
Yeah,
on.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, no chip on the shoulder.
I didn't mean it
Yeah.
that way, negatively. I
I
mean, just
just-
meant we should be positive in
Yeah,
our approach.
absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
Interaction, yeah.
Madam Mayor, absolutely rainbows and butterflies.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So listen, no chip on the shoulder, but I am empowering you. If you're looking, for permission, I'm trying to give you permission to do the right thing and recognize what your role is. That's separate. But from a positive standpoint, the more interaction that this commission, which is very active and very in tune with what is going on within your community. I mean, this commission is getting a lot done, let's face it. The more interaction this commission can have with the other elected bodies, the better. Because there may be, and I won't put words in people's mouths, but there may be a tone that is a perception that the commission is not as forward-thinking as it is. There's a lot of discussion. I hate not speaking frankly, but frankly, there were some commissions in the past that didn't get along with the other elected bodies, and so everything was an objection. And so when everything is an objection, then nobody wants to participate. That's not a productive conversation. When they have an opportunity to see the professionalism that occurs from this board and the commitment, I think that they will be more receptive to moving forward with collaborative projects and eagerly want to meet with you again in the future. So that is what I would ask you to do. Just try and get to know them more and get them to see your policy making in action.
I think that's a good way to put it. I agree. And if it's okay with you all, I will go and
Yeah.
represent well. And
Thank
any input, Commissioner Tompeck? You had looked at that. We talked about North Sewells Point Road needs attention. That road is,
Yeah,
that
no,
road floods.
I wish I could go. I'd really like to listen in this, because I've seen, in St. Lucie County, them having a county meeting with the city of Fort Pierce, and they go over all kinds of different things. They may talk about annexation, they'll talk about road projects, they'll talk about everything from soup to nuts. And, when they start talking about some of these large capital improvement projects, we really would need to know, we should know, and if
Yep.
possible, participate in them.
Yeah.
And we may be able to find out why, Martin County Utilities has us at the, 29th on the list, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, and that'd be interesting to find out what's going on there.
I agree. All right. Well, that sounds good. And that's Thursday, right? Thursday at 9?
Yes, ma'am, 9
Okay.
o'clock.
And last one is the Charter Review Committee. That had come up during prior discussions, also during strategic priorities. Are you guys interested in, I personally think it would be important, that's our constitution, our big document, some putting together a committee, put it on a workshop, or, do you guys have any interest in?
I assume that if any changes to the charter have to be by referendum?
Correct.
If we change the charter. And when was the last time the charter was reviewed?
Yeah, it's just kind of a discussion about, we're not going to go into it now, but just to put it on a
I think we
discussion.
have to do it every 10 years, right? Isn't that how it
It's
works?
supposed to be done every 10 years, and you haven't made changes to it.
I think we ought to take a look at it.
Okay, that sounds good. I'm thinking, you had mentioned maybe a regular meeting would be better if we wanted the attorney's advice. We want his advice, okay, all right. Maybe the next meeting, or depending how light or heavy, or November's. Gosh, we're already-
Correct.
Okay.
Because you'll have to determine how you're going to appoint the committee,
Okay,
and he can help you with that.
okay, all right, that is it. Sorry, my comments were so long. Seeing no more comments, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion
All
here.
right. Meeting